Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. U.S. President Joe Biden says another attack on the Kabul airport is highly likely in the next 24 to 36 hours. In a statement, Biden promised further strikes against the ISIS in retaliation for a deadly bombing outside the airport. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul also warned Americans to leave the airport immediately, citing specific credible threats. At least 6 Palestinians have been injured after Israel bombed the Gaza Strip, violating the truce yet again. The Israeli military claimed that the airstrikes targeted the Hamas positions in the Strip. The attack comes after Palestinian groups announced to resume protest at the Israel-Gaza border against Tel Aviv's restrictions on the enclave. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Husseini Khamenei says the current U.S. government is no different from previous one over its behavior on the 2015 nuclear deal. His statement comes after a top Iranian security official accused U.S. President Joe Biden of illegally threatening Tehran. Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council Ali Shamkhani said Biden's statement establishes Iran's right to reciprocate. Mexico has registered 756 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 17,000 new cases. In Pakistan, the virus claimed 69 lives and infected more than 3,900 people overnight. Globally, the death toll is over 4.4 million, while the caseload is approaching 216 million. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. U.S. President Joe Biden says another attack on the Kabul airport is highly likely in the next 24 to 36 hours. In a statement, Biden promised further strikes against the ISIS in retaliation for a deadly bombing outside the airport. This report has the details. As the U.S. neared the end of its 2-decade-long military involvement in the country, its troops have been killed in an ISIS attack outside the Kabul airport. Following the attack, the U.S. said it has killed 2 ISIS attack planners in Nangarhar airstrike and wounded another. Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Kabul has warned Americans to leave the airport immediately, citing specific credible threats. A Western security official says the U.S. is in the final phase of its evacuation from Kabul, with just over 1,000 civilians left to be flown out. Moreover, the Taliban forces have sealed off the airport to most Afghans hoping to leave. The Taliban say the group and the departing U.S. forces aim for a swift handover of the Kabul airport. UN envoy to Kabul, Zalmay Khalilzad, has welcomed the Taliban statement that it will not prevent anyone from leaving Kabul. Taliban spokesperson Sohail Shaheen said the Afghans who intend to leave can proceed after commercial flights resume. The group also assured political leaders of their security and safety and urged welfare of the people. Earlier, the Taliban said they were preparing a new cabinet, adding that its makeup would be cleared in a week or 2. Meanwhile, the resistance forces have rejected Taliban's claims that they have entered the Panjshir Valley. Head of the resistance front, Mohammad Almaz Zahid, said there is no fight in the valley and no one has entered the province. It comes after the Taliban claimed that their forces had entered Panjshir from several directions without facing any resistance. Russian envoy to Kabul, Dmitry Zernov, said the Taliban can take over Panjshir within hours, but said they don't want to proceed to avoid bloodshed. Zernov said that ISIS attack at the Kabul airport has challenged the Taliban, not the United States. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says peace and stability in Afghanistan will benefit the entire region. In a statement, Qureshi cautioned that abandoning Afghanistan will affect all its neighbors negatively. He said India has pulled together different terrorist groups to carry out malign activities in Pakistan. Qureshi warned that India is trying to destabilize the regional peace and stressed upon keeping a strict vigil over such designs. While National Security Advisor Muhammad Yusuf urged the international community to stay engaged with the Afghan leadership. The advisor said a security vacuum in Kabul will lead to spreading of terrorism in the region. Yusuf called for an internationally coordinated effort for durable stability backed with an economic plan. At least 6 Palestinians have been injured after Israel bombed the Gaza Strip, violating the truce yet again. The Israeli military claimed that the airstrikes targeted the Hamas positions in the Strip. The military alleged that the strikes were in response to incendiary balloons launched from the Palestinian enclave. The attack comes after Palestinian groups announced to resume protest at the Israel-Gaza border against Tel Aviv's restrictions on the enclave. An Egyptian-mediated truce ended the May conflict, in which Israel carried out airstrikes across the coastal enclave. At least 250 Palestinians and 13 people in Israel were killed in 11 days of fighting. The United Nations says Israeli forces have killed 55 Palestinians by live ammunition in the occupied West Bank so far this year. In its reports, the UN said 527 Palestinian-owned structures were demolished in Area C of the West Bank. The report also highlighted that the forced demolition caused 733 people to migrate from the area. Israel prevents Palestinians from carrying out construction projects in parts of the West Bank designated as Area C. International law views both the West Bank and East Jerusalem as occupied territories and considers all Jewish settlements there illegal. Iran's supreme leader says the current U.S. government is no different from the previous one over its behavior on the nuclear deal. Ali Husseini Khamenei made the remarks during a meeting with President Ibrahim Raisi's newly formed cabinet. Khamenei said Washington truly has no shame on the nuclear issue. He said the U.S. withdrew from the JCPOA, but it makes demands as it was Iran that pulled out. The supreme leader went on to say U.S. foreign policy is likely a predator wolf that sometimes changes to a cunning fox. This comes hours after a top Iranian security official accused U.S. President Joe Biden of illegally threatening Tehran. Earlier, in a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister, Biden said the U.S. may consider other options if nuclear diplomacy with Tehran fails. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Mexico has registered 756 daily deaths from COVID-19 and more than 17,000 new cases. Globally, the death toll is over 4.4 million, while the caseload is approaching 216 million. More in this report. The coronavirus-related restrictions and vaccinations have proven so far the key to getting back to normalcy. Italy says it will eliminate, on August 31st, a 5-day mandatory quarantine for travelers from the UK. In France, the number of people in intensive care units dipped for the first time in 9 days. Over in Germany, thousands marched in Berlin to protest against restrictions even after demonstrations were banned. Police said protesters had gathered for unauthorized marches in different parts of the city center.
There were some attacks on local forces coming out of these demonstrations, throwing bottles or physical assaults. At the moment, we can report some 80 detentions. Unfortunately, we must also report 4 injured police, so we cannot talk about a totally peaceful demonstration.
New Zealand has reported 83 locally acquired cases of the highly infectious Delta variant. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says some changes on how the outbreak is managed could be announced on Monday. In Australia, New South Wales saw a record 1,218 overnight infections. The vast majority was in Sydney, the epicenter of the Delta-fueled outbreak, with an additional 6 deaths. Authorities urged citizens to get vaccinated, fearing the worst is still to come.
For example, given the case numbers are where they are, I suspect in October we'll probably have the highest number that we do in intensive care. I suspect we've not reached the peak yet there at all. But how hard we work now will make sure we keep people out of hospital, and that's really important.
Thailand says it expects to have 140 million doses of vaccines this year as it ramps up inoculation to fight its biggest wave of infections. The United Arab Emirates says it will resume issuing tourist visas to vaccinated travelers from 30th of August. In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed 69 more lives over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says that the toll has surpassed 25,600. It said with a positivity rate of 6.2%, 3,909 people contracted the virus overnight. The country's caseload has topped 1,152,000, while over 1,033,000 have recovered. The ministry said there are more than 93,000 active cases, of which over 5,600 are critical. At least 19 civilians have been burned and hacked to death by Ugandan rebels in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. A local official said Red Cross workers discovered the bodies in the Beni territory of North Kivu province. A local civil society organization deplored the absence of military personnel around Beni. Since May, North Kivu and Ituri have been under a state of siege, replacing civilian authorities with the army to fight armed groups. In the U.S., Hurricane Ida is expected to make landfall in Louisiana on Sunday as an extremely dangerous storm. The Category 4 storm is bringing 140 miles per hour winds. Traffic jams have clogged motorways out of Louisiana as tens of thousands flee coastal areas. President Joe Biden has warned that Ida is turning into a very, very dangerous storm. He said he has coordinated with governors and electric utilities to prepare for the hurricane. The state governor, John Bell Edwards, has warned the storm could be one of the biggest to hit the state in 170 years. Sunday marks 16 years since Hurricane Katrina pounded the Gulf Coast, killing 1,800 people. Forecasters have warned that Ida could be stronger than Katrina. Meanwhile, a state of emergency has also been declared in the neighboring Mississippi. In the U.S., the massive Caldor fire continues raging in California amid efforts to avoid it from reaching the Lake Tahoe region. Authorities say the western and eastern edges remain the most active. Officials say the blaze has burned more than 152,000 acres so far and is 19% contained. It churned through mountains just southwest of the Tahoe Basin, cloaking much of the area in toxic smoke. The firefighters hope to take advantage of calmer winds before the hot, heavy gusts return. The southwest winds are expected to move across the fire on Sunday night through Tuesday. Scientists claim they have discovered the world's northernmost island off the coast of Greenland. The tiny point of land was revealed by shifting pack ice. The island measures roughly 30 meters across with a peak of about 3 meters. It consists of seeped mud as well as moraine, which is soil and rock left behind by moving glaciers. The scientists say the island's appearance is not a direct consequence of global warming. The discovery comes as a battle looms among Arctic nations for control of the North Pole. Several U.S. expeditions in the area have in recent decades searched for the world's northernmost island. In 2007, Arctic veteran Dennis Schmidt discovered a similar island close by. Paris' Arc de Triomphe monument will be enveloped in a shimmering wrapper in a posthumous installation by artist Christo. More in this report.
The envelopment of the world-recognized Arc de Triomphe monument is a tribute to the late artist couple Christo and Jean-Claude, who dreamed for decades of the project.
Christo said, I would only like to wrap the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. That's the one thing I really would like to do. And then what happened was they said, okay, and they talked to Philippe Ballaval, who is the president of the Center of Monument National, who loved the idea, and he brought it to President Macron, and that's how the whole thing happened and started in 2017.
Workers have erected scaffolding around 19th century arc to set it up for the silvery blue recyclable plastic wrapping. The monument will be on view between September 18 and October 3rd this year.
Now we have another month to go before the opening. So most of the steel, as you can see, the steel to protect is installed, the cable system is installed, the votes are installed, the weights at the bottom are installed. And right now we are placing the protection for the little corniche where the cherry picker is there now.
Christopher Javashev was known for his larger-than-life installations. Christo wrapped up a stretch of coastline in Australia and the Reichstag Parliament building in Berlin. He also worked closely with Jean-Claude and covered Paris's Pont Neuf Bridge in yellow cloth in 1975.
Switzerland has started the construction of its largest alpine solar plant to help secure renewable energy throughout the year. The 2.2 megawatt project is a part of Swiss plans to plug the gap left by the phase-out of nuclear energy. Details in the following report.
Strategies to limit the impacts of climate change have become divisive in Switzerland. Under the government's Energy Strategy 2050, Switzerland plans to increase energy production from renewables and hydro generation, aiming to add 2 terawatts by 2040. The project manager says the transition is going on to a certain extent, but will eventually gain momentum.
This is the idea to have installations in other places as well, like here on a dam, on a hydropower dam, but it could be made on infrastructure in general.
The Alpine location will let the Mutsee plant deliver half its production during the winters, when sunlight is generally in short supply in Switzerland. Solar plants at lower elevations produce only around a quarter of their electricity during this half of the year. Switzerland imports electricity especially from European Union in the colder months. But snags in relations with the European Union mean Switzerland must urgently up its winter energy production.
Need is bigger in winter than in summer, and it will be even more so in the future. So therefore we're looking for a high alpine installation for a balanced yield, that is not only in summer but also in winter.
Nuclear power last year generated a third of the country's electricity, while fossil fuels still accounted for more than 60% of Switzerland's overall energy consumption. When it is completed, foreseeably by year-end, the Mutsee will have nearly 5,000 solar modules, producing around 3.3 million kilowatt-hours of electricity per year.
For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.